Shove it, man! Alright, I've got to start this video out today by thanking the big man, Caleb Robinson. He's the world's biggest Hawkamaniac for continuing to support me on Patreon. By paying his £5 a month, he has a say in the future videos on this channel, which is why today I'm reviewing TNA Unbreakable 2005, because not only does he support me on Patreon, but he's also supporting Hawks nationwide, and he also gets access to the exclusive Hawk Hogan show. Caleb, I know the big Hawk appreciates you, brother. It's been a while since I've watched Unbreakable 2005. I know the main event's going to be good, but what I really want to figure out is this show just a one-match pay-per-view, or is it good all the way through? I know some other channels have recently reviewed this, so I'm going to see if I share the same opinion as them. Alright, it's the opener. It's the Diamonds in the Rough versus the Free Live Crew. A 5-minute match. Free Live Crew took on some complete jobbers here. Before Eric Young, there was David Young. But whilst Eric Young is charismatic and gets the crowd behind him, David is as dull as ditch water, and the only time the crowd would ever get behind him would be if he was driving a taxi for them. The general tone of this match was a feel-good kind of moment, because Free Live Crew had been fighting amongst each other and now they'd come back together. The ending was quite funny. Conan throws his shoe at one of the jobbers and then nails his finisher. What a bunch of losers these Diamonds in the Rough were. 1 star overall, a waste of time. You could have caught it on Impact. On the pre-show, Monty Brown declares himself as the #1 contender to the world title, and Jeff Jarrett doesn't like this. The two start getting a bit upset with each other, and then Jeff Hardy also gets involved, as he also wants to be the #1 contender to the world title, and he batters Double J for this. That might come back to haunt you later on, Nero Hardy. The next match is Austin Aries taking on Roderick Strong. Austin Aries debuted for TNA last month after the fans pulled for him to come back. Roderick Strong competed in lots of TNA matches at this point. Both were famed for their ROH work prior to this. Austin Aries is on top early on in this match with the headstand and the dropkick, which TNA fans will be familiar with. Roderick Strong fights back with his signature backbreaker and chucks Aries into the corner. Austin Aries is covered in acne at this point. He looks like a little girl going through puberty. Strong is dominating Aries now and nearly beats him with another backbreaker. A couple of pinning reversals later before Aries gets put down again. Aries manages to fight back with some strikes and hits the pendulum elbow. I love that move, it's great. Aries then hits a springboard pendulum that nearly puts Strong down for the 3. Then there's a lovely move by Strong followed up by a kick, and this nearly has the beating of Austin Aries. Strong then makes a mistake and Aries can hit the corner dropkick and then the brainbuster. He then goes and follows it up with a 450 and pins him for the 3. A good match, quite fun, probably needed a little bit longer. I give it 3 stars out of 5. Backstage, Monty Brown and Kip James are arguing. They are teaming tonight, but they are partners who don't get on. Kip James tells him to concentrate on the match tonight and stop thinking about Jeff Jarrett. And that match is up next. They're taking on Apollo and Lance Hoyt. Sonny Siaki accompanies them to the ring because Sonny Siaki was beaten up last week and now he's in a neck brace. Everyone's too worried about Sonny Siaki's health, so he gets sent to the back. It's 4 big, powerful wrestlers here. In fact, a lot of you always say that I should have included Apollo and Lance Hoyt in my top 10 wrestlers that TNA screwed up. Hoyt is dominating Kip James early on in this match, and Kip gets scared and runs to the outside. Monty and Kip are having a disagreement on the outside. And then back in the ring, Monty almost gets beaten by a side slam. Apollo is strutting his stuff in the ring and almost gets a 2 count with a powerful clothesline. Eventually the heels manage to cut Lance Hoyt off, and they get on top for the first time in the match. It stays this way for a while, with Lance taking a lot of abuse, until there's a double down. Apollo then gets the tag in and takes the 2 out with a sky high that was taught to him by D'Lo Brown, his former partner. Kip then hits the Faymaster on Apollo and Lance Hoyt hits a moonsault. It's all kicking off here. Madness. It's quite impressive for a guy his size to hit a moonsault. I'm struggling to keep track of this action, to be honest. Apollo hits a super kick for a 2, and then Monty Brown hits the pounce out of nowhere for a 3 on Apollo. Well, that was quite a surprising end to the match. They teased that the bad guys were going to fall out here, and it didn't actually happen. There's a surprise. I'm going to give it 2 stars out of 5. It was just kind of a pointless match, really. Nothing bad and quite exciting, but there wasn't much of a storyline behind it. Next up, Team Canada are backstage, and Robert Roode is going on about taking on Jeff Hardy tonight, and he calls him a half-baked nutjob. Petey Williams will be taking on Chris Sabin and calls him an inferior American. The music then hits for the Monster Abyss, and Petey Williams comes out. I'm not sure if they made a mistake here or if this was Petey's music for a while. I don't remember this at all. Oh, then it changes to the Team Canada music. Maybe I misheard. Sabin comes out looking a lot greasier than normal. I prefer Sabin as a heel, he's a bit less bland. Lots of fast counters on the early going in this match. I'm going to struggle to cover all the action, so if I miss something, I'm sorry. Sabin hits the head scissors early on to the outside, and then he follows this up with a beautiful back elbow back into the ring. Sabin is dominating the match, but Williams manages to dodge him, and Sabin stupidly crashes into the ringside. Back in the ring, PT counters a powerbomb into a sick DDT. The crowd are kind of dead here, which is quite surprising. I guess they got sick of seeing PT Williams on top for such a long time. PT eventually does make a mistake and jumps from the top, and Saban nails him with a dropkick. PT then goes for the Canadian Destroyer, and this gets reversed into a few pinning combinations between the two. Then PT locks him into the sharpshooter, but Saban does manage to reach the ropes. PT then looks for the Destroyer again, but Saban dodges, and then he misses a springboard move of his own. Williams then drops Saban onto his face. Ouch. You better hope he's got dental insurance after that one. Saban then nails PT with a devastating buckle bomb, and that wakes the audience up finally. Saban then goes for his finisher, the cradle shock, but Williams keeps blocking him and pokes him in the eye. Saban is blinded and tries to pick up the referee and hit him with the cradle shock. PT falls for this and thinks he's got Saban where he wants him, but maybe Saban's playing a bit of possum, as he puts the referee down and nails PT with his cradle shock finisher for the free. I enjoyed the match. It would have been better if the face-heel dynamic had been switched. I think both of these guys work better as the opposites. I will give it 3 out of 5. Shawn Michaels' cousin then comes to the ring and nails Saban with the super kick. He gets on the mic and says at Bound for Glory he will be competing in the Ultimate X match. Apparently he won the first ever Ultimate X match, so there's a little factoid for you guys. He then super kicks PT Williams and leaves. The Abyss crowd members are shaking and dancing on the outside. It looks quite fun actually. The Monster Abyss is out next, and it's actually him this time. He's been on the warpath in TNA and is angling for a world title shot. Sabu has just returned after a short hiatus and picked a fight with Abyss. For those of you who watched my recent video on how much of an idiot Abyss is, I can confirm that he's not a complete moron at this point. James Mitchell gets on the mic before the match and says that tonight's match will be a no DQ match, but not a Monsters Ball. Sabu's music hits and he suddenly appears in the ring, Sting style. Abyss starts out the match by throwing Sabu overhead, and it's a big weight difference here. Abyss then tries to nail Sabu with the chair, but he manages to dodge it and he hits a drop toe hold. Sabu then does lots of offense with the chair in typical Sabu fashion that you'd expect, and he doesn't mess it up. 2 tables then get set up on the outside of the ring, but Abyss is being an idiot and forgets that he's fighting Sabu, and Sabu runs at him and jumps over the top and hits a somersault. Sabu then springs on the ropes and hits a nice DDT. Abyss manages to regain his composure and fights back with an overhead belly to belly, throwing Sabu to the outside into the tables. Damn, that's a painful looking spot. I'm never taking that move, it's a killer. Abyss gets him back in the ring, but Sabu kicks out of the pinning attempt. The chair comes back into play in the match and Sabu hits a leg drop on the chair and sandwiching Abyss between the chair and the table. Sabu only gets a 2 out of this because Mitchell puts Abyss's leg on the bottom rope. It's stupid in my opinion. You can do whatever you want in this match, but God help you if your opponent touches the ropes. Abyss then brings the thumbtacks into the ring, but he can't manage a choke slam onto them. Sabu then gets his steel chair again and springs off the ropes, but Abyss catches him and throws him with the black hole slam into the tacks. This is the end of the match and he pins him for a free. A good match, but quite tame for an Abyss match. He wasn't even bleeding by the end of it, and if you ain't bleeding, you ain't trying. 3.5 out of 5. Backstage, Alex Shelley is there being interviewed by Shane Douglas. He's supposed to be teaming with Sean Waltman tonight. They have a tag team title shot after winning the Chris Candido competition, but Waltman hasn't turned up yet. Talking of no showing, Bobby Roode is taking on Jeff Hardy next. I'm not really sure why this match is happening. This is more of a ring return for Jeff Hardy as he's been away from TNA for 4 months because he got suspended for no showing a match against Raven. Early in the match, Jeff Hardy dropkicks Roode to the outside and then slingshots himself onto Roode. He goes for the Whisper in the Wind, but Roode manages to catch him on the top. I recently watched this same match, but in 2010 for my Monday Night War series. We'll see if Roode holds his own better than he did in 2010. Roode hits a lovely turtle-whirl backbreaker and gets a 2 count. Bobby looks like he's finally got Jeff's number here in this match and has an answer for everything Jeff tries. But I might have been speaking too soon as Jeff Hardy finally manages to get Roode down with a kick, and then Jeffrey Nero Hardy follows it up with the Whisper in the Wind. Jeff tries to put Roode away with a Swanton bomb, but then out of nowhere PT Williams appears, who's part of Team Canada with Robert Roode, and he distracts Jeff with the hockey stick. Roode is then able to hit a suplex off the top rope, but he only gets a 2 count from this. Roode then tries to attack Hardy with the hockey stick, but Hardy dodges him and hits a twist of fate. Roode then rolls to the outside and Hardy hits a dive onto both him and PT Williams. PT tries to hit Jeff with the Canadian Destroyer on the outside, but Hardy reverses it. Jeff Jarrett then runs out and attacks Hardy with the hockey stick, and this allows Roode to cover him for the free. Well, that's a shock. I didn't think Roode would be winning here. I would give it 2 stars out of 5. It wasn't any better than your average Impact match, and it was pretty pointless. You could tell TNA management weren't really buying into Jeff Hardy because he was so unreliable. It's the tag team title match up next. Oh god, it's the Naturals, and these greaseballs are the champions for God's sake. Jimmy Hart is doing the talking for them. Storm walks up and laughs at them for being too scared to talk on the mic themselves. The other competitors in this tag match are going to be Team Canada. It's Eric Young and A1. Not exactly the best members of Team Canada. If you're not familiar with A1, it's because he's basically the Canadian version of Wes Briscoe and no one cares about him. Shelley comes out to the ring on its own and it's confirmed that Waltman is definitely not turning up. Mike Tenay on commentary throws Waltman under the bus and says how disrespectful and despicable it is for missing a match in the memory of Chris Candido. Alex Shelley isn't going to bother finding a new tag team partner for this match. I don't know why he bothers going alone in this 4-team tag match. Chris Candido's family is shown at ringside and you can see a young Dixie Carter with them with a few less wrinkles. God, I hate the Naturals. Alex Shelley gets a nice pinning attempt on Eric Young early on, but as Shelley is on his own in this match here, he's literally just getting beaten down and handicapped by the Team Canada members. Shelley does eventually take out the Team Canada crew, and then Johnny Candido jumps the guardrail and tags himself in. But he's not very good unfortunately, and Eric Young pins him with a small package. The crowd barely react. This means him and Alex Shelley are eliminated. Bit harsh on Alex Shelley here. Back in the ring, Storm is battering Eric Young and almost beats him with the Eye of the Storm. Storm eventually does get thrown to the outside and Team Canada are on top here again. It's weird seeing Eric Young as a serious heel wrestler. Storm eventually catches Young with the super kick and manages to tag out to Chris Harris. Harris is destroying Team Canada here with his suplexes. This is the Chris Harris that made WWE want to sign him in the first place. He then goes for another suplex, but Team Canada just hit him with a hockey stick instead, and this eliminates AMW. Not sure why that's not a DQ to be honest. The Naturals then finally get in the match. These Naturals just aren't very good. In fact, looking at the ring, Eric Young is surrounded by bad wrestlers at this point. Eric Young eventually gets tired of hearing Jimmy Hart on the outside and pushes him over. It was quite funny. One of the Naturals hits an Alabama slam on Eric Young, probably the most impressive thing you'll ever see from the Naturals. A1 then powerbombs the Natural, and the crowd really like A1 for some reason, they keep chanting his name. Jimmy Hart then attacks Eric Young on the top rope, and this allows the Naturals to hit their finisher, the Natural Disaster, to win the match and retain the belts. As much as I dislike the Naturals, it was still a fun match, 3 stars, but I can't help but think the 2 better teams were eliminated first. Rhino is then shown backstage talking about his match with Raven for the world title later tonight. This is apparently a Raven's Rules match. This was a bad time for the main event scene in TNA. There was a lot of washed up has-beens and never-will-be's in the main event, and the world title often revolved around Jeff Jarrett, so if you weren't a fan of his, you weren't a fan of the main events. Raven comes to the ring with his trademark shopping trolley full of weapons, and of course he uses lots of them on Rhino in the early goings in this match. Raven busts Rhino open very early on, and then on the outside Rhino starts to whack Raven with a beer keg. It looks so fake though, there's no way you're going to be swinging around a beer keg like that. Raven then gets out his favourite kendo stick and beats down Rhino. He then randomly puts an ankle lock on him. Unfortunately, it's a rope break. Once again, a rope break in a no disqualification match. I can't agree with it. Rhino then hits Raven with a trash can in retaliation and gets the advantage. He's looking for the gore or some sort of charge, but he awkwardly misses, and Raven puts him in the ankle lock yet again. But Rhino isn't having it this time and nails him with a trash can. Rhino then gets Raven in the head with the staple gun, and they play around with this for a while. It looks quite brutal. Rhino then misses a splash from the top rope and both men seem out of it. I do have to say Raven's offense looks so weak and fake here. Then Cassidy O'Reilly runs out. If you don't know who he is, he's Raven's little follower. He tries to cause a distraction, but it's no DQ, so why doesn't he just stay out and help his leader? Anyway, the distraction backfires and doesn't have any bearing on the match. Raven then powerbombs Rhino through the ladder. Do you know, Cassidy O'Reilly is the biggest jobber ever. I recently did an episode of the Hulk Hogan show where I revealed that in 2006 alone, Cassidy O'Reilly lost 91% of his matches and was completely useless, so there's a factoid for you. They then bring the shopping trolley into the ring, and Rhino crashes into it, missing his gore. Jeff Jarrett then tries to get involved yet again, but Hardy runs out and tries to stop him. Raven then DDTs Jarrett and Rhino and pins him for the 3 to win the match. It was a similar sort of match to the Abyss match early on, but it was probably worse. I will give it 3 stars out of 5 due to the interference and too much Jeff Jarrett. Okay, up next it's the main event, the match everyone's been looking forward to. It'd be interesting to see if this match holds up because I haven't seen it in a few years. So this is the legendary Unbreakable Freeway for the X Division Championship. It's Chris Daniels versus AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. Chris Daniels comes into this one as the defending X Division champion and he's held the belt for 6 months at this point. Samoa Joe is still undefeated at this point, and AJ, well, he has a nice little red hood. So go AJ. Daniels is being a early on, so AJ and Joe take it in turns to kick him and hurt him as much as possible. It looks quite funny. Daniels then jumps up and yells at them both to stop kicking him, so they both kick him again together. AJ and Joe then start fighting each other, and there's lots of pinning combinations. Joe is dominating early on and kicks everyone until Daniels makes it back into the ring and takes him out. No man has a clear advantage here. Joe hits a scary looking overhead belly to belly. It's so close to the corner that it looks like an accident waiting to happen, but luckily everyone was safe and it just adds to how dramatic that move looked. Daniels then takes out Joe on the outside with a moonsault, and Styles takes them both out of a springboard shooting star press. Daniels then monkey flips AJ into Samoa Joe, and Styles is able to reverse this into a head scissors. Styles is then thrown miles into the air from the outside of the ring, and that looks painful, and it was kind of off camera. They almost missed it. Back in the ring, Daniels goes for the 3 on Joe, but he reverses it into the Kolkita clutch. Daniels looks like he's going to tap any second, but then AJ appears out of nowhere on the top rope and dives into both of them, hitting his lovely spiral tap manoeuvre. It's not enough to pin either man though. Joe then starts dominating for a while, and he's truly throwing his weight around here, and he has a lot of it to throw around. After squashing AJ, he's still unable to get a 3 count, and then he starts getting frustrated and looks like he's straining. Daniels then hits the Death Valley driver out of nowhere, which looks quite impressive on a man Samoa Joe's size, but AJ is able to get in the ring and break it up. AJ and Daniels are then fighting on the outside and jumping everywhere, and it looks absolutely insane, and this diverts your eyes from what's about to happen, as Samoa Joe comes hurtling over the top rope onto both of them to squash them. The crowd go absolutely nuts here. Daniels then gets stuck on the top rope, and AJ goes up to join him. Then Joe goes up to join them both and throws them both overhead from the top. Samoa Joe then hits his muscle buster finisher on AJ, and Christopher Daniels is starting to get a bit worried about his title defense, so he tries to nail him with the title belt, but Joe dodges this and slams him into the mat. Joe is then arguing with the referee, and Daniels hits an enziguri kick into the belt and into Joe's face. Daniels then does hit the BME on AJ, but this pinfall gets broken up. Daniels has a period of dominance here until AJ hits an inverted DDT, but AJ getting on top doesn't last for long, as Daniels hits a superplex. Samoa Joe then spots an opening, but he's unable to pin either man. AJ then hits the Pele kick, and then randomly puts Samoa Joe in a torture rack. That was a strange move, but it looks good. Joe doesn't tap anyway. Styles then goes for the pin on Daniels, but changes his mind and picks him up and hits the Styles Clash. But somehow Samoa Joe breaks up the pin. Samoa Joe then gets chucked to the outside, and Daniels goes for the Angel Wings. But AJ reverses this, and has him in a pinning situation, and then gets the 3. AJ wins the belt and is the new X Division champion, and Joe is still undefeated, so it protects him as well. But he looks like he's taken a dump on the outside of the ring. Okay, that match is still amazing, fact, a 5-star classic, and it's rightfully held in high regard as one of the best TNA matches of all time, if not the best. But the rest of this pay-per-view, what am I going to say about it? Well, not much. No, there wasn't really anything on this show to talk about. 2 tame hardcore matches, 3 filler matches which you could normally catch on an episode of TNA, and 2 decent X Division matches. But I don't see what all the hype was about for the rest of this pay-per-view. It's a good pay-per-view, yes, there was nothing offensive on here, but to be a good pay-per-view you're meant to have multiple amazing matches, not just one. No offence, but this is officially a one-match show. And no, this pay-per-view doesn't blow, but it barely even glows. No offence if you don't like it, but that's my opinion. Thanks again to Caleb over on Patreon for supporting me and requesting that I watch this show. It was good fun. You should go sign up for Patreon now. You might even be able to request that I make an entire video on something stupid, like a look back at the career of Wes Briscoe. Like anyone would want to see that.